Welcome students to another Windows Phone app development lesson, and in this lesson we are talking about how to store persistent data that our application can use to make decisions or present information to the user. And in the lesson I talked about a couple of different ways that Windows Phone provides options for how you want to save your application data, right? Isolated storage, using the phone application service. You could use roaming settings, which actually just stores the data up in the cloud. So in this lesson, in this little tutorial video, we're going to walk through making an app that stores information using the isolated storage on the device, and then how we can retrieve that information. And so, as I mentioned in the lesson, using isolated storage is a way of storing information directly to the device that you're wanting to test on or that your app is running on. And you can use key value pairs if you're using isolated storage settings, or you can store whole files using isolated storage files. So today we're just going to look at key value pairs and create us a little app. So we're going to get started with our new project, and we want, just like we did last time, we want to use the Windows Phone Silverlight. So let's see, we're going to scroll down here. Oh, I think I went too far. And we want a blank app, Windows Phone Silverlight. And so I'm going to call this the Rewards app. And what we're going to build, let's see, we're going to target the 8.1. What we're going to build is an app that takes in two pieces of information, the user's name and their membership number, and then it's going to save that information to the isolated storage settings as a key value pair, and then I'm going to show you how to retrieve that information and make some decisions with it. So go ahead, if it didn't load up your main page, go ahead and get it out of your Solution Explorer. Grab your toolbox. We're going to come over here and I'm going to make this member rewards, and it's too big, so let me fix it. And get our text settings here and dial that back a notch. Get rid of this my application. There we go, member rewards. So we're going to need a couple of text blocks so we know which data we're typing in places. So I'm going to need first name and a text box for that. So this is going to be my first, or let's just call it name, if I could type, box. And I'm going to take the word text box out of there. And then another text block for membership number. Let's make, no, that looks pretty good. I'm going to make it bigger. And another text box. Go ahead and line those up, make it look nice. And this is going to be our member box. Take the word text box out of there. I like to do a little build every now and then just to make sure that I'm got everything saved. And then we're going to use a button. I'm going to plop that button down on there. And this is going to be my submit button. And it's going to say submit. So what we want to do here, we're going to get into the on-click event of our submit button like we've done before. We're going to collect the first name and membership number, and then I'm going to show you how to save it in the isolated storage. So we'll double click our submit button to get into the code. And before we get started on the submit button click, we need to add in the using statement that's going to allow us to use the isolated storage. So we'll come up to our using statement section, and it's using system.io.isolatedstorage. Let's make that a little bigger. There we go. Okay, so down to our submit button click. The first thing I'm going to do is gather the data from the text boxes. So I want a string for first name, And I'm going to get that from my namebox.text, and I'm going to save the membership number as an integer. So I'm going to have to do a convert to int32 my memberbox.text. So I have my two values. So now what I want to do is set up the isolated storage connection object. And I say it's a connection object. You're really just instantiating the object so that your Windows Phone application knows that's what you're going to want to use. So it's isolated storage settings, and I'm just going to name it settings, equals your isolated storage settings dot application settings. And then using this settings object that we've now instantiated, we can set up our key value pairs. You know, I talked about in the lesson, key value pairs are basically like variable data relationship. So your key is like the variable name, and the value is the value that you're storing in the variable. So under settings, I'm going to put, and you could just give it a name in quotes, but I'm actually going to give it first name. And that's going to equal the value you want it to equal, and that's going to be member number, our variable. And so what this does is creates a key with our member's first name and returns us their member number. Now, if you wanted to store these two pieces of data in separate variables, we could set it up this way and actually do name equals first name and oops, square brackets, member number equals member no. And then you could retrieve each one of these items by name, and I'll show you how to do that. There's not really a limit to the number of key value pairs that you can have in isolated storage. I mean, I guess your limit is essentially the amount of storage on the device. So when you're done, we don't forget to save the key value pairs. And so we just call settings.save. And that will commit our key value pairs to our storage. So the next thing I want to do, let's go back over to our XML. The next thing I want to do is tell the user what membership level they are when, and we're just going to put it right down here at the bottom. So when they click submit, we're going to store that data. We're then immediately going to pull it out as a key value pair. And then display something down here. So let's get a little text block. And I'm going to name this results. And I'm going to take the word text block out of there. So it'll show up down at the bottom. So to pull it back out, let's see, we're going to set up our result string and display it. So to pull the information back out of our persistent storage, it's actually pretty easy. So I'm going to set up a variable using the var. I'm just going to call it store. And we're going to connect this to our isolated storage settings.application settings. And then you always want to check to make sure that you're not trying to grab a key that doesn't exist. So we're going to put if our, let's use not, if not store dot contains our key. So the key that we're looking for is our first name. So if it contains the first name, then we can just return an error message. So I'm going to put that into results.text equals not found. Else our results, well, let's go ahead and do a little if logic in here. So if we did find their member number, let's check it. So if our, we want to use, Oh, I didn't show you how to pull it back out. That's what I was doing wrong. I knew I was like getting ahead of myself. So to actually pull the data out, let's do that here. I set it up and then immediately jumped into the next section. So sorry. Okay, so we want the value that is in that particular key. So let's just set up a variable. So int member number is then going to be the data type that we have, and store key in square brackets. Now our key is whatever it is that the key that we're looking for, and our key in this case is first name. So basically it's going to dig through the store, it's going to try to find the first name. If it finds it, we know we're returning an int and we're going to put it into member number, right? And so this is what we're going to put in here, right? Because we want to check that it contains that particular key before we go forward. So our key was the first name. I don't know why I took that out of there. I got all flustered. So it's going to check for that first name key. It's going to give us not found if it's not there. So if our member number that we have pulled out of our persistent storage, let's say if it's greater than 1,000, then I'm going to put into results, you are a gold member. Else, I'm going to put into results, you are a regular member. And that way you can kind of check your logic and make sure that it's working right. So to store, we set up that isolated storage settings object. We use that object with the square bracket, the key that we want to use. It can either be a variable or it can be a direct literal string. And then we equal that to the value that we want to store. When we pull it back out, we use a var because it could be any data type that we're pulling out of there. Remember, var allows us to use different data types to hold, or kind of an ambiguous data type to hold all different types of data. And so we use the application settings, isolated storage, and then we can check that store. Like in this case, I checked to see if it contains a particular key. And in this case, I used the key in the square brackets to pull out the particular value. And so let's go ahead and test. I'm going to fire up the emulator here and run, and we can see what this looks like. So here is our member rewards app. I can type in my name and I can type in my membership number. I want to test my gold level settings, so I'm going to put 1500. I hit submit and I get you are a gold member, right? Because it's storing this data and then pulling it back out. And then if I go and hit 900, then I get you are a regular member. Now, because it's persistent information, if you actually wanted to check that it's storing it in that isolated storage settings, now it's not going to work in the emulator, but if you're testing it on your regular phone, you could modify this app once you have stored the information to just be able to query for a particular piece of information and pull that out of that persistent storage. So I hope this helps. Go ahead and test your apps out. Fiddle around, make some changes, store some things, see if you can pull it back out, and kind of just get a little creative with ways that you can store information in your Windows Phone environment.